Welcome back to Red Hawk Media. Today we're going to be taking a look at Dreamweaver. So, thus far, we've encoded our first web page using basic HTML code, and now we are going to use an HTML coder slash designer for us, which is Dreamweaver. To get started, we're going to go ahead and do some of the groundwork first before we even go into Dreamweaver, and that would be to first create our root folder where we will be saving all of our stuff to. So I'm going to go ahead and just create a new folder on my desktop here, and I'm going to go ahead and give it a very specific name. The name that I'm going to use here is the number of the hour for which class I'm in. So let's say I'm in 8th hour, and then I'm going to use my three initials, my first, my middle, and my last, and then I'm going to put the year, which is 15. Okay, and I've got my folder created. That's the protocol that we're going to follow for all of our folders so that we'll be able to find these later when they're actually posted online. So we've got that created. Let's go ahead and hop over to Dreamweaver. It's going to take a while to open for the first time that you open it. And one of the things that we're going to do to begin with is we are going to start something new. Okay, new document. Now, if you're not seeing all of these options here, you can click on More in the option drop down. And then it'll bring up all this. And we're going to start with a blank page, but we're going to work with a template this time. So we've got a little bit of guidelines already created for us. You're going to have one of two options here that you can work with. You can go with a 3-column fixed header, or you can go with a 1-column fixed header and footer. I'll show you what the 1-column looks like first, and then you can make up your mind. So I go ahead and click Create, and there it is. So you can see how this template is already set up for us a little bit. It's got the basic guidelines in here. These are all changeable so that you can manipulate them. But the nice thing is that it's already created a lot of the div containers for us, or the div classes. So we'll talk about what a div class and a div ID is in a little bit here, but just know that you've got three basic areas that you're working within your column. You've got your header, you've got the body area, and then you've got the footer. And then this darker area all around the outside is your background. Okay? And that's all customizable. That's the nice part about starting off with this. Our other option, let's go ahead and take a look at that. Go to New again. And I'm going to go to 3-column fixed header and footer. And I'm going to go ahead and create that. And that's what we've got for this one. Now, this one gives you some sidebars to work with. So here's your column 1. Here's column 2. And here's column 3 over on the side. Now, we still have our header at the top, and we have the footer at the bottom here. Now, again, this is all customizable, and it's just a matter of what you're looking for in your website and what you'd like to see happen. Regardless, just know that we are going to be putting a menu on here that will have drop-down features, so that will work into whichever scheme you pick. Okay, so that's starting point here. Now, we've got to go ahead and start getting a few things set up so that we can work on this site and so that everything saves into the same area. So over on the right-hand side, I'm going to click on My Files. Now in here, it's going to give me either a list of things or there's going to be a list of nothing because you haven't put any in. This is all of my current files for the Red Hawk Media site. Okay? I'm going to go over to Manage Sites. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to create a new site. So our new site, we can call whatever you want. Basically, you could use your name for your site. Okay? So I'm going to say Mr. Hall's, Mr. Hall. I'm just going to say Mr. Hall like that. All right? Now, this is the important part. We created that folder earlier on our desktop. We're going to refer back to that now. So over on the right-hand side here, I'm going to browse for my folder. Okay, I'm going to go to my desktop, and I'm going to choose the 8TSH15, and that's going to be my root folder. That's where I'm going to save everything to. That's kind of a nice setup. Now, once I've got this all put together, I go ahead and click Save. Okay, now when I'm done, I'm going to have that selected. There we go. And if I go back over to my files and assets, I can now make sure that it's on the Mr. Hall website. So now, any files that I create, any files that I save, any resources that I use, any assets, anything like that, are all going to show up in here. And that's the basics of what we're going to begin with. Now, my first form or my first thing that I'm going to go about customizing here is I'm going to go ahead and customize my header to begin with. Okay, this is going to take us a blast back to Photoshop. Before we do that, though, we can take a look at a few things that'll help us figure out the exact sizing of our header. For instance, here's the first thing. Our container, in other words, our overall width from this line all the way across to this red line, this whole thing, the whole container is 960 pixels wide, as it says down here. Okay, if you're not seeing this view in particular, there's a couple different viewing options you can use here. You can be in the design mode, which is strictly just this, which is nice because now I can click in here and start typing stuff in if I wanted to. Okay, or the one that we probably will gravitate towards, because we're going to be using a little bit of coding and a little bit of design here, is the split. This is handy because now, as I make changes, I can actually see them take place. So for instance, if I go into, let's see here, let's say I go into the color of my background here. This is my header color background. Okay, let's say I just change this to F, and go over here, and now you can see that the header color is all black. Now this didn't change because this is actually an image that's put in there. It's a generic image that was pre-created, okay, but it's still part of the header, okay? So if I want to change the header, I would create in Photoshop a picture that was 960 pixels wide, because that's the width of my container, and 90 pixels high. Now, if I want it to be a little bit taller than that, I want a bigger header, I want that to be kind of the central focus, or maybe I don't want it to be as tall as that, I would go ahead and go to the header information and change that. So what I'm going to do is look over here, and I'm going to look for, here's our footer, there's our navigation, sidebars. Okay, and did I go by it here? Header. Here we go. So here's the header. Alright, this is where I could actually change the size of some of those things that are in here. Okay, the overall container is that size. And I can look at all that. Let's see here. There we go. You can see the div class header here. Now, it's going to adjust to whatever picture size I actually put in there, the way it's set up right now. So I can go ahead and create any picture as long as it's 960 pixels wide by at least 90 pixels tall. And I'd be able to fit that in there. That's your first job for today. Whether you're on the single column or on the 3-column setup, you're going to get your root folder established by creating that folder on your desktop. Get your site so that it's showing up over here in your files, okay? And then the last step is, again, to create a new header that actually fits in here. We're going to start customizing this little by little, okay? Remember, when saving images, you're going to save them as JPEGs, and one thing I can show you that will help you load up your page even faster, let's say I wanted to use this as a header. Let's say for a moment that I was going to go ahead and cut this down to the size that I actually want. Let me get my marquee tool. Let's say that I was going to go just across the header like this. Alright, and then let's say we're going to crop all this. There we go. Let's say I'm going to use this as my header. Now, once it's all said and done, for saving, you're not going to go to save as. You're going to actually go to save for web. This is going to give a slightly smaller file size here, okay? And I'm going to keep it on JPEG high for the preset, okay? And that's going to take 60% of the quality here. It's going to compress it down to that. The image will still look exactly the same, but it will be compressed to this size. I want to make sure, since this is a solid picture, that it is a JPEG. It should say high here, and then I go ahead and click Save. Okay, now once I click Save, this is my opportunity to actually save my image into my folder that I created. So I'm going to go over to Desktop. I'm going to choose that new folder that I've got, okay, and I'm going to save the JPEG in there. Now, headers change all the time. So one of the other things I should do, just to be on the safe side here, is also save the PSD. Let's say I wanted to make revisions to this. Maybe I want to add a year, a date, an upcoming event, something like that. It's already got the size created. All I'd have to do is go in and change the text. So I'm going to save the PSD into the folder too. My folder is already selected. It says Photoshop down here for the format, so I click Save. And yes. Okay, so now if I go back over to Dreamweaver here, you can see that over in my files, once it's updated, that now in here I have my two pictures. Now ideally, what I would want to do before I go adding pictures in, this is just a normal kind of web convention thing for designing websites. What I should do is in this folder, I should start organizing the stuff. Right? These are my images that I'm working with right now. So I'm going to create a folder that just says images. Okay? And in fact, I'm going to keep it simple and keep everything lowercase here. And I'm going to take these two things and drag it into the images folder. There we go. So now those are in here. Click out of that, come back over here, and you can see now I have an images folder. If I click the drop down, there's my RHM, and I am ready to drag those things in. Okay? Now, this is where our coding comes into play. Of course, I go back over to the coding part here, and I can see that here's my header, here's the original picture. I can go ahead and insert a new one. So I'm going to go ahead and take this stuff out of here, all the way back to this point. And the moment I type the quotes, it prompts me to browse for my file, which is kind of nice because now I don't have to type all that stuff in there. So I click Browse, and I go to my Images folder, if it wasn't already on the desktop in this folder, but it should start off here automatically because we established our root folder already. Go to Images, and I choose my RHM JPEG. Now, chances are that this isn't going to fit perfectly because I just cropped it down and I didn't exactly set up the exact dimensions when I created the document for this. I was actually using it for an After Effects project. But here we go. We're going to try it out. Click Open, and make a document relative path here. It should be saved first. Okay. And there we go. Now, I should save this, and this is what we're going to change. So it prompted me to save my website. This is my home page, so I'm going to call it Index. Index is usually the name of the home page. It doesn't go in a folder other than your root folder. It will always stay in the base level of your root folder and will never move from there. So I go ahead and make sure it says index.html, and I click Save. All right. Now, you can see it went ahead and added in my picture now that it's saved. And yeah, obviously this is cropped to way too large. It doesn't exactly fit in there the way it's supposed to. But now I can start telling it to be an exact size. So if we remember some of the stuff that we did, I can go back into the coding side of things over here. Let's drag this over so you can see what's going on. And we've got a height feature, and I can put in, let's say 90. Okay, and I've got the width feature. And remember, the width of our container was 960, so we're going to go with that. Now, this isn't the best way to do this because your picture should already be set up at these dimensions. So it's going to kind of warp my image that I'm using here, and it won't look very good. But when you create yours in Photoshop, it'll look great. So I come back over here, and voila. We've now got a header that is 960 pixels wide by 90 tall. And I've now customized my header. Now your header is going to be something unique. This is your website for you, showcasing the work from Red Hawk, from your, I shouldn't say from Red Hawk Media, but from your multimedia class. Okay, so think about what you want to call this website. Remember that it is a showcase for you and the stuff you create in here. And then we're going to start adding things in the coming days. Okay. Thanks again for joining us. This has been another episode of Red Hawk Media. Bye now.